Nitroplus is one of the more infamous visual novel developers, having made classics like Seiya no Uda and Full Metal Daemon Mormasa. In the past, I've talked about their BL branch, Nitroplus Churro, in Slow Damage, but now I'll be talking about one of their main games, the highly anticipated Tokyo Necro. Tokyo Necro is one of those titles that was released ages ago and looked really cool but didn't get an English translation until recently. I was pretty excited for it, but did it live up to my expectations? As I said, Tokyo Necro was developed by Nitroplus and had a very interesting pair of scenario writers. First is Fukami Makoto, who is more well known for his work on anime and manga. He did script writing for Psycho Pass and its sequels except for Season 2, which he apparently had no involvement in. Another reason that anime was like that. It's easy to see where these cyberpunk elements of Tokyo Necro came from. It might be a specialty. He's done other stuff too, like a Berserk light novel and Gyakukurashi, so he has experience with the fantastical and zombies as well. Most recently, he wrote the script for the currently airing anime, Tongoku Daimakyo. The other scenario writer is Shimokuro Vio. He's more experienced with visual novels compared to Fukumaki, as he assisted a bit with Steins Gate and was the main scenario writer for Gekko no Carnival. Most well known of his works is the one he was most involved in, and that's Kimi to Kanjo to Kanjo no Koi, also known as Totono, or You, Me, and Her. It's another Nitroplus title that you've probably heard compared to Doki Doki Literature Club. There, he was the writer as well as the director. Recently, he's also written for an anime called Buddy Daddies, which I've heard is quite good. So there's these talented writers, but who's the director? The director of Tokyo Necro is Ogami Keiichi. He's worked on numerous Nitroplus titles and has a lot of experience. Previously, he's directed Phenomeno and Guilty Crown Lost Christmas, both much shorter than the giant that is Tokyo Necro. Tokyo Necro is set in the year 2199. A new ice age has covered the world in ice, yet humanity is still surviving. If that isn't bad enough, this dystopian cyberpunk future also has a zombie problem. The zombies here are referred to as living dead and are scientific in nature. Those that create these zombie thralls are called necromancers. To combat necromancers and zombie terrorism, there are those who make a living hunting them. They are known as living dead stalkers. Our two protagonists, Ethica Kibanohara and Soan Nagioka, happen to be two such living dead stalkers. Killing is their business, and business is good. They're partners, and one job has them end up rescuing an amnesiac girl named Iria, which kickstarts the real plot of the story. Several main factions in Tokyo seem after her, so it becomes a matter of protecting her while trying to help her regain her memories. Right off the bat, I'll say the world building is really well done. There's an entire in-game glossary that gives more information on terms and events mentioned. The characters do a good enough job explaining these concepts, but it can be interesting to look into additional information. It goes hard into some cool science fiction ideas and cool gadgets. The most important of which is the X-Brain. It's the helmet that Soan wears, and Ethica has her own version in the form of her glasses. It's a device that expands the user's conscience, providing them with the most optimal course of action during combat. The way it's used in the narrative and how it's used to showcase the different personalities of our leads is kinda brilliant. Soan has trained himself to immediately respond to any suggestions by the X-Brain. As he puts it, he's like a machine that turns input into output. Ethica, on the other hand, is more rebellious and will go against her X-Brain's suggestion out of spite or just refuse to use it at all. All in all, a very cool setting. Another thing I found impressive about the writing is how it uses multiple perspectives. You'll be switching between Soan and Ethica's point of views frequently, but you'll never be left confused as to whose view you're seeing, because they both have strong character voices. They each have their own unique ways of viewing the world and personality quirks, which are reflected well through their speech and internal narration. Soan is more reserved with his emotions and tries to be more objective. Ethica is more playful and prone to emotional outbursts. This made viewing each of their perspectives enjoyable in their own way, each having something a bit different to offer. The story is broken off into 4 routes based on the 4 main heroines. Which one you get is decided by a choice in the middle of the story. You can technically do them in any order, but I believe there's a certain optimal order. Do them in the order of Mitsumi, Kansu, Eri, and finally Iria. This is the order I did them in, and it feels like the routes built off each other in interesting ways. You could disregard this and do it the order you want, but at the very least you should leave Iria for last. It's obvious she's supposed to be the main heroine that the plot revolves around. The finale of her route feels like a culmination of everything before it. Routes have some repeating events, but thankfully you can skip through any repeated lines and only see the new scenes. Once you finish the 4 routes, you gain access to the true ending. It's short and a cool spectacle in a vacuum. Unfortunately, it does not exist in a vacuum, and compared to the endings of other routes, it comes out short. To me, it felt like the true ending actively undermines the themes of the game, and ruins the impactful ending of one of the routes. It felt completely unnecessary, like it was just included and went against the message of the game for the sake of cheap fan service. It's difficult to articulate what I mean without spoiling anything, but know that reading it made me more upset than it should have. It's a shame, parts of it are pretty cool, but overall it soured the game for me. Let's delve more into the characters. I've talked about our two leads a bit before, but I love Ethica. She's a wonderful protagonist. Her free spirit and rebellious personality are aspects of her that I appreciated. She has nice bits of nuance too. She tries to act tough and cool, but she has her own insecurities and vulnerabilities. Specifically in regards to her relationship with her adopted sister and love interest, Kiri. Kiri is someone she clearly has romantic love for, but is afraid of truly voicing these feelings because she doesn't want to ruin their relationship. Her relationship with her father is another extremely compelling element of her character. She hates her father, which will remind you of whenever he is mentioned. Her father is the head of the military police and the creator of the X-Brain, so he's a major player in the story. The way that our relationship was explored in every route was engaging. They have complicated feelings towards each other, and you can see a different side to their relationship in each route. I also just love how her iconic chainsaw, her rabbit punch, is symbolic of her rebellion against her father. By going against the fighting style he taught her and instead developing her own chaotic style of fighting. I respect how they allowed her to be openly lesbian. You don't often see that in games that aren't purely Yuri. It was nice. Maybe it was only allowed because love between women is more appealing towards the men, the main audience of the game. Still, her sexuality is taken seriously and is well handled. Soan is the other lead, and I don't have as much praise for him. He isn't a bad character or anything, but I find him less compelling than Ethica. I felt slightly disappointed sometimes when it would cut to his perspective because I was more invested in what Ethica was doing. Soan is the cold and methodical protagonist. However, I found there's a bit of a disconnect between the way he was described and the way he actually is. He describes himself as an emotionless machine, but immediately becomes attached to Iria and exhibits several emotions around her. This is probably intentional, to show how while he views himself as emotionless, he simply represses his emotions, yet he can't quite control himself around Iria. The problem is that this happens as soon as he meets Iria. I feel like he should have been uncaring early on and slowly starts to warm up to Iria, rather than it happening right away. Characters state that meeting Iria caused him to change, but you don't really see what he was like before, which made that bit of development for him feel a bit rushed. That said, they do some interesting things with his character, and he has a few genuinely fantastic moments. I love the direction this character took in Kiri's route. He took a more antagonistic role, which made this version of his character really tragic. He has cool stuff in Iria's route, but I'd probably think about his role in Kiri's route more. As for the main heroines, first we have Mitsumi Gijo. He's prideful and has amazing sword skills. He kind of reminds me of characters like Maya from Love and Kay from Diaseri. She's from her own Living Dead stalker agency, but teams up with Soan and Ethica because of her vendetta against the main antagonist, Milgram. I enjoyed her character far more than I originally thought I would. He has a very endearing personality. He has a very obvious crush on Soan due to an incident in the past where he saved her, but he's oblivious. The relationship is pretty sweet, though the romance doesn't develop until near the end. The two have good chemistry together. She's probably my favorite of the four main heroines, though I don't think she's as cool as Ethica. It helps that Mitsumi is allowed to fight, unlike the other three. Sadly, she's kind of a jobber, but her action scenes can still be rad. To me, it almost felt like she got the least amount of respect in the story compared to the other three. She constantly loses and is the only one to be sexually assaulted. Still, a very good character, I just wish she was treated a bit better in the story. I do like how she develops in her route. It's all about her being stuck in the grief over her brother's death, and has channeled that grief into a need for vengeance against Milgram. It follows her coming to terms with his death and trying to move on. Kansu is a cute, masochistic hacker. I absolutely adore her design. Right here in an eye patch are a winning combo. Her personality is equally charming. She's not the social sort and is a shut-it. Relatable to the target audience, or at least to me. Her art is interesting because the main antagonists are dealt with pretty early on, and the second half of it is almost becomes like a disaster movie. It's a weird route, but it has some interesting ideas, and I like the way it ends. Much like Mitsumi's route, this is her coming to terms with parts of her past. One thing I find really intriguing about the route is the absence of sex and romance. This is a more platonic route about friendship. Kansu does have age scenes with Ethica and so on, but they're kind of part of the common route. Kiriri Aso is Ethica's adopted older sister figure and love interest. I wish I could say more about her, but she hardly has a personality of her own. I wish she was a better character, but she always came across as extremely dull. Even her route isn't about her, it's about Ethica and exploring the relationship between her and her father. Yuri just happens to be there as a damsel in distress. I do like the way she acts as a motivation for Ethica, and the relationship is kinda sweet. It's just that Kiri herself has nothing going on for her. No development or character arc. There was potential for interesting development with the relationship with Ethica and her father, but it felt like they hardly did anything with it. It's a shame because her route is actually pretty good, easily one of the best parts of the story, but the reasons that it makes it so good have nothing to do with her. In short, she's a wasted character. Iria Hagio is the final of our main heroines. I'll be blunt, she's the worst character in the game. I can't stand her. This is very unfortunate when most of the plot revolves around her. What bothers me about her is how almost everyone in the story constantly fawning over her and pointing out how cute she is. It came across as obnoxious and personally annoyed me. It is explained that the reason everyone immediately loves her is because she has super empathy, but that's not well represented in the writing. She doesn't seem much more empathetic than anyone else, it's just an excuse for everyone to love her and be important to the story. Even her being into anime felt like a way to pander to the otaku audience so they could go, she's just like me. It doesn't actually make much sense for her character. It doesn't help that she's a fairly stagnant character most of the time, with hardly any development aside from getting her memories back. Much like Kiri, her route is not actually about her. Yuri's route is about Soen and exploring his character, forcing him to face his past. Yuri is just there to motivate him and be a damsel in distress, just like Kiri. Her route is great, but once again, that has nothing to do with her. It's Soen and Ethica that made the route enjoyable. Ironically, Kansu's route is the only one that takes her character in an interesting direction. It's the only time she's allowed to be a flawed fuck-up, in comparison to every other route where she can do no wrong. It's surprising looking back on it. She's bothersome there, but there's a reason for it and it forces her to grow as a person. It's a shame she isn't handled this well anywhere else in the story. In summary, I think half the main heroines are good, while the other half are kinda lackluster. Moving on to the supporting characters, let's talk about Ethica and Soen's co-workers in the Karakazumi Living Dead Stalker Agency. Tokitaka Ichihara is the sniper of the group and possibly neurodivergent, with a fixation on numbers. I didn't expect to like him that much, but he's an endearing and lovable character. Him bringing up the beauty of numbers in random situations was always amusing. His dynamic with Soen and Ethica is fantastic. Him and Soen basically grew up together while living under the same mentor, so they have a strong bond that's apparent in the story. He's very competent in combat too, with his sniping skills coming in to save the day. Aside from that, he gets a few shockingly emotional scenes. If I had one complaint, I do wish he got to do a bit more. Felt like he got shafted in Iria's route. Ryoka Karazuzumi is the other notable member of the team. She's technically the leader and has a motherly role in the group. Honestly, I disliked her. She felt like a character that was mostly around for age scenes and fan service. One of the first major scenes with her is a shower scene with Ethica, which sets the tone for her character. She does contribute to the themes of loss and grief. Her husband died and she still hasn't completely gotten over it, but it feels like these serious moments take a backseat in comparison to her sexy scenes. I also found her relationship with Tokitaka to be kind of creepy. I like what she means to him, but I wish his feelings for her were purely motherly and not romantic. Kazuma Nagisa is a member of the military police and Kiri's friend. She's not that important to the story, but I adore her. I loved her more than any of the four main heroines, so it's sad she didn't get nearly the amount of time she deserved. She tries to act tough, which is extremely cute. She's a supportive friend towards Kiri and has fun interactions with Ethica. She's supposed to fight using tonfas, so it made me upset that she didn't get a single action scene. Majorly disappointing. At least she got a good H scene. She deserves her own spin-off. Okiyasu Kibunohara is the Major General of the military police and Ethica's father. He's a very fascinating character that represses his emotions. He's an enigma at first. I was always questioning what his deal was and the nature of his conflict with Ethica. These issues are delved into in Kiri's route, and the answers surprised me. I had one complaint with him is that his end goal is a bit underwhelming. He talks a lot about needing to guide Tokyo onto the right path, but that path was strange. I thought there was potential for some moral ambiguity with this character, but Kiri's route makes him into a real villain, which I can see why would be necessary. I wish his end goal was a bit more gray. However, the way he was presented in other routes is really interesting and cool. As for the villains, Milgram is the central antagonist. He's a terrorist necromancer and the leader of the Laboratory, a group of elite necromancers. He's cool as hell as a cult leader like Charisma, leading to even non-necromancers to believe in his cause. He and his subordinates aren't that complex as characters, it's more about what they bring to the story thematically. Milgram has this nihilistic philosophy that's the complete antithesis of everything the narrative stands for. He believes that life has no meaning, emotions are worthless, and humanity's desperate attempts to cling to life are unsightly. He seeks the beauty of death. In a game about celebrating life, he is the perfect adversary. He has this imposing presence in the story. He's presented as unstoppable and almost inhumanly strong. He's a wall that challenges the characters both physically and mentally. I loved him and his enthralling presence. Some of my favorite characters in the game. His two main followers, Rorschach and Pavlov, aren't as interesting or charismatic, but they do still represent in opposition to the main themes of the game. Moving on to the presentation, the game has several different artists, but the main artist and character designer is Osaki Shinya. He's worked on multiple visual novels before, many not even being Nitroplus works. However, he was the main artist for Hanachirazu and was an assistant artist for Slow Damage. His work here is excellent. There are some beautifully colorful CGs and rad designs. If anything, I'd wish there was more CGs. There's a decent bit, but it lacks a good CG of Kazuma. One of the most unique aspects of this VN is its approach to battles. Here they went all out and made these 3D action scenes. I've never seen anything like this in a visual novel before. It's kind of the opposite approach compared to Mahia, which took 2D art and effects to their limits. Here, they made 3D models of all the characters and composed these intricate fights. Both are impressive in different ways. The models look spectacular. They do remind me of PS2 games in a positive way. The battles are a real spectacle, almost reminding me of stuff like Advent Children. They're chaotic and I appreciate how they're not one-sided. There's usually a good bit of back and forth in battles. Even our heroes struggle with their opponents often and don't always win. The only issue is how often the text stops the fighting. I do understand it's a visual novel, but sometimes I wish they let the fight play out a bit instead of explaining every action. These sequences can be somewhat demanding on PCs, but fortunately there's robust graphics options, that even less powerful PCs can run the game. Overall, I think this approach enhanced the game and makes it more distinctive compared to other VNs. The music was composed by Ziz Studio, like a majority of other Nitroplus works. Not much to say, it's awesome as always. The rock music that plays during battles is amazing. These insert songs that play during certain key moments that go pretty hard as well. This is the part where I talk about the themes of the story and what it meant to me. Tokyo Necro is a story about death. Almost every character has lost someone, and it shows the effects that loss has had on the individual. More than death, Tokyo Necro is a story about life and what makes it worth living. It shows the fragility of life. The world is full of sorrow and hardship, yet being alive is wonderful. Life might not have a purpose, but that means you can make your own. Emotions, memories, the connections we have with others. They're all ephemeral, but immensely valuable and make being alive worthwhile. Another recurring theme is people being shackled to the past and being unable to move forward. They need to confront the past and come to terms with it in order to progress with their lives and live for the future. These are all complex and well thought out themes. Definitely the kind of stuff that resonates with me in stories. Unfortunately, some of these key themes and emotional moments didn't land quite as hard for me as they could have because I wasn't as invested in the characters. Whenever these ideas center around Iria, it became hard to be affected by it because I disliked her that much. I think without the bad characters anchoring the story, the themes would have hit so much harder. That's not to mention how the true ending kind of undercuts these themes in a way. In conclusion, Tokyo Necro is a visual novel I have conflicted thoughts about. It does some things exceptionally well, but others so poorly it frustrated me. I really wanted to like it more, but parts bugged me too much to ignore them. I'd have to put it as one of the lesser Nitroplus VNs I've read. If I had to give it a score, it'd probably get a 6 out of 10. I'm sorry if I've been more negative than usual in this review. It was a slight disappointment for me, but I can completely understand why others would love it. The issues that bothered me, like the true ending and Iria's character, will likely not bother others as much. I'm just a weirdo. Let me be clear and say that I don't dislike the VN or anything. It's fine, but I didn't enjoy it as much as other people I know. I might still recommend this to people who really like Nitroplus VNs or just like cool cyberpunk action. You can find the game on the Jest Store, on Steam, and sometime in the future on GOG as well. Know that if you get the game on Steam, you'll need to get a patch off the Jest Store to get the uncensored version. From what I've heard, the Steam version doesn't just cover H scenes, but entire battles and important information. So be certain to get that patch or just buy it from Jest directly. Anyway, that's it for today's review. Sorry for taking so long with this video, but I've been busy. Thanks a lot to my good friend Chris Toadmaster for editing this script. If you made it this far, thanks for watching.